Today's Japanese slang term, or I guess meme phrase, is踏めば助かるのに, or if only they step on it, they'll be saved. This was an incredibly popular meme phrase in 2024, being ranked number 15 in Pixiv's list of the best 100 meme phrases and slang terms of the year. Although if you go into that and delete all the words that are actually just band names or media products, etc., it easily makes the top 5. Now, to understand this term, we're going to have to go back in Japanese history, and indeed back in Japanese history books, because this phrase comes from the 2020 Japanese middle school history textbook you see here. Now, in this textbook, there are 4 characters which guide students through the history that they're learning about. 3 of them are humans who make comments that, the students can engage with, representing the sort of thoughts that students might have. And the 4th is a robot who is introduced by the students as one with a really good memory, but who doesn't really understand humans well. And as a result, the 3 kids are going to help the robot better understand humanity by going through history with it. On paper, this sounds like a fine idea, right? The robot who doesn't understand human history or humanity asks questions from a rather innocent and naive perspective, and the students or the textbook or the teacher can jump on those questions to discuss fundamental questions about why people do the things that they do. Unfortunately, this is a case of pretty good idea, not great execution, because ultimately the robot's comments throughout the textbook come off as, at best, naive, and at worst, extremely inappropriate or offensive. On the more harmless side, for instance, in a discussion of one of the various events in Japanese history where a bunch of Japanese people killed a bunch of Japanese people, the robot notes that murder is wrong, which, yeah, true, but not really helpful as a comment. Similarly, when discussing how Greek Olympians used to run naked, it expresses shock at running naked, which I guess is fine and, I don't know, maybe could lead to some discussions of the difference in how people viewed nudity throughout history. The problem is, though, you have to be really careful with this kind of stuff because history is important to a lot of people, and a lot of bad things have happened in history. And when a bad thing happens, having a robot flippantly comment on it often doesn't land the way you'd want. Here, for instance, in a discussion of Toyotomi Hideyoshi's Golden Tea Room, the robot notes that it seems like a waste of gold. And you know what? Yeah, comrade robot, I also think that monarchs and emperors throughout history should have maybe spent more money improving the lives of the commoner. But this is an important Japanese cultural artifact that maybe deserves to be treated with a bit more respect. Likewise, asking if sakoku was really sakoku when there was some trade going on has kind of weird vibes, and honestly there seems like there are better questions you could ask about why the sakoku period happened. Things get even worse then when the robot looks at a picture of German children playing with money in the run-up to World War II and says, oh, it'd be fun to play with money, which is very insensitive. The girl saying, but it seems a little tie-hen at the bottom doesn't really make it better. And then everything comes to a head with the worst example, which is the origin of the meme phrase today, is a page discussing the persecution of Japanese Christians during the Edo period. In this discussion, the textbook shows a picture of a fumie, which, if you're not familiar with Japanese history, were engraved images of Christian religious figures, which Japanese people were told to step on to show that they were not Christian. If they did not, they were often subject to torture until they recanted their faith, or if they didn't, death. This is obviously a very cruel part of Japanese history and one with a lot of real victims that needs to be presented with due gravity and respect. So how does the textbook do this? Well, by having the robot say, "Fume ba tasukaru no ni," or, if they just stepped on it, they would have been saved. Again, if we zoom out, I think we can kind of see what they were going for. I don't think there was any intent to be disrespectful. There is a chance, for instance, that this could spawn an important dialogue in the classroom about why people value their faith or why something can be more important to you than your own life. But on the same note, there's obviously also no question that this is not the way to go about this. And indeed, these sort of disrespectful comments continue with a discussion of Japanese people having to buy things at the black market at exorbitant prices after World War II, featuring a very similar phrasing where the robot says, oh, if only they'd just gone and bought things at a cheaper store. So while this robot was unnamed in the textbook, the Japanese internet has given it the names of Kichiku Roboto or Robokasu. The former translates something as brutish robot, and the latter you could translate as something like bastard robot or jerky McRobot face, I suppose, if you want to keep some of the meme value in the translation. While the textbook came out in 2020, people on the Japanese internet were discussing the sort of cruel, or as this YouTube video covering it calls it, indelicate phrasing of this robot by 2022, but the "Fume ba tasukaru no ni" phrase and the robot went super viral in the Japanese internet in 2024 when this tweet mentioning it went, well, super viral. And you can see on Google Trends, indeed, that the first interest that they note for the phrase really pops up in the same month that that tweet came out. With Japanese people finding this robot and its phrasing very, very interesting, not only because of the insensitivity of it, but also the phrasing here happens to match a famous bit of dialogue from the 1991 manga Akagi, wherein the first statement by the protagonist is "Shineba tasukaru no ni." Because "Fumeba tasukaru no ni" evoked this famous phrase of "Shineba tasukaru no ni," this sort of doubled the meme value of it, making it of interest to not only the younger internet, but also people who remember this phrase. And yes, of course, Japanese memes have shown the robot now saying the original "Shineba tasukaru no ni" phrase, even placing it into the manga's panel. Since then, the Japanese internet has just kind of been having fun with this phrase and the robot. People have placed the robot in other historical events, making similar comments, using the ba no ni pattern you saw earlier. Here's someone noting that if you just don't drink, you won't get a hangover, which, very true. I don't find this one to be a problematic statement by the robot. And here's one noting that if you just don't attack the robot, he won't have to kill you. And I guess a potential world where this robot is now the overlord and we are no longer allowed to critique his problematic inquiries about historical tragedies. The robot and the phrasing have also been mixed with other anime, such as this one here talking about Rin from the great show Laid Back Camp, asking why she doesn't just read books at home, or even in parodies inspired by the meme/robot which don't feature them, such as this person noting that some people want to be stepped on. People have also made GIFs, such as the robot stepping on itself for eternity, and a number of parody videos, such as this really great one about Mario. VTubers making advertisements to make them your Oshi or subscribe to their channel.
社会の教科書のロボットにアテレコしてほしいね。最近流行ってるこいつのこと？ロボットの声ですね。ちょっとやってみます。夢星モカのことを押せば幸せになれるのに、チャンネル登録すれば幸せになれるのに。流行りに乗ってみた。どうかな
Or this video, which has something to do with Pokemon, but I actually do not understand at all.
その踏み絵を踏んでみろ。
踏めば助かるのに。
There are, of course, people also just saying things using the ba no ni pattern online as a reference to this meme, although again, if you see Shineba tasukaru no ni, that is a reference to the earlier anime, not this new meme. But of course they are fueling each other's popularity. Not the most pleasant origin of a term I've covered, but now you know a extremely major part of Japanese meme culture last year. I hope you liked this video, and if you didn't, minake reba tasukaru no ni.